The daughter you dumped built an empire. That's what my brother heard someone say, right before he called me for the first time in 25 years. The room in my bakery went quiet. I still had flour on my hands. The phone kept vibrating across the steel counter. Jason, again. Then my mother called. Then my father. The same people who left me at 9 were suddenly desperate to be found. They didn't know it yet, but they were already too late. Because this story didn't begin with their apology. It began with a faded red suitcase and a child staring through a window, waiting for headlights that never came. My mother zipped a faded red suitcase on the kitchen table. She didn't fold anything. Shirts, socks, a sweater I hated, just shoved inside like speed mattered more than care. I stood there waiting for someone to explain it better. Kids always think there's a better explanation coming. My father kept checking the clock. He wouldn't look at me. He kept tapping his keys against the counter like he was late for something more important than his own daughter. Jason was already packed for Mom's place. Megan was crying because she wanted to bring too many toys. Everyone had somewhere to go. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the yelling from the week before. Not the divorce papers. Not the way adults suddenly start speaking softly when they've already made a hard decision. I noticed everyone had a destination except me. I asked where I was staying. My mother said, "Just for a little while." People say temporary when they need a kinder word for damage. My father finally spoke. "It'll help until things settle down." Things, not us, not me. Things. Part of me wanted to ask why no one picked me. Another part already knew the answer and was trying not to hear it. The drive felt longer than it was. Nobody played music. Nobody talked. My mother kept fixing my collar at stoplights like neat clothes could disguise what they were doing. When we pulled up, I saw the fence first. Then the faded sign. Then children sitting on a bench outside, too quiet for their age. I remember thinking maybe we were dropping something off. I didn't realize the something was me. Inside, a woman smiled with practiced kindness. My father signed papers fast. My mother crouched down and said they'd be back soon. Soon is a dangerous word when spoken by people already leaving. She kissed my forehead. My father touched my shoulder once, like checking a box. Then they walked out together. No one turned around. I stood there holding the suitcase handle so hard my hand hurt. I told myself they'd come back before dinner. I was still innocent enough to believe silence had limits. I was about to learn. It didn't. That first afternoon, I stayed near the front window and watched every car that slowed down. I thought parents who made mistakes came back quickly. I thought guilt had better timing than it does. A volunteer brought canned food. A social worker carried folders. 2 boys got picked up by an aunt who smelled like cigarettes and peppermint. Not one person came for me. Around dinner, the woman at the desk smiled again and said, "I'm sure they're just running late." Adults love hopeful lies when the truth feels ugly. I nodded like I believed her. Part of me needed to. The other part had already started counting how many times my parents avoided my eyes that morning. That night, I kept my shoes on in bed. I wanted to be ready. Ready if headlights hit the parking lot. Ready if my mother rushed in crying. Ready if my father finally sounded like a father. No one came. The next morning, I asked if there had been a message. Then I asked again after lunch. By the 3rd day, I stopped asking out loud. Hope gets quieter before it breaks. They had called it temporary. A few weeks. Just until things settled down. But I was starting to understand something most children learn too young. When people want to leave, they always promise to return first. And by the 2nd weekend, I began listening for footsteps more than voices. Every morning, I claimed the same chair by the front window before breakfast trays were cleared. It had one loose leg and a crack in the vinyl seat, but from there I could see the parking lot, the gate, and the stretch of road where cars slowed before turning in. I treated that chair like it was a job. White sedan? Maybe Mom? Blue truck? Could be dad borrowing something. Two people in front seats? Better odds. Children become statisticians when love gets uncertain. I learned the sounds too. Gravel under tires, car doors closing, the buzz of the front gate, heels on tile, men's boots, keys hitting the counter. Every sound felt like a possible rescue. Most of them were deliveries. Sometimes a relative came for another kid. Those were the hardest days. You'd watch somebody pack fast, trying not to smile too soon. Then they'd leave carrying trash bags full of clothes and the kind of hope that made everyone else quieter. I always told myself I'd be next, not because I had proof, because without that thought, the room got cold. The staff started changing their language around me. At first it was, "When your parents come back." Then it became, "If we hear anything." Small shift, huge wound. That's how abandonment usually enters. Not all at once. It edits one word at a time. At night, I kept my shoes beside the bed, toes pointed toward the door. I wanted to save seconds if they came late. I imagined my mother crying. I imagined my father finally ashamed. I imagined apologies children should never have to rehearse for adults. None of those scenes ever happened. By the third week, even I knew it. But knowing and accepting are different jobs. So I kept watching the window while pretending it was habit. I kept glancing up whenever the gate buzzed, then acting like I hadn't. Pride starts early when pain has witnesses. One afternoon, a girl older than me sat beside the chair and asked how long I'd been there. I said, "A few weeks." She asked, "They say they're coming back?" I nodded. She looked out the window and said, "They all say that." Then she walked away. No cruelty in her voice, just experience. That hurt worse. My 10th birthday came on a Monday. I remember because lunch was spaghetti and the milk cartons were warm. I waited all day for a card, a call, anything with my name on it. Nothing came. No balloons, no cake, no message at the desk. I smiled when people said happy birthday because I didn't want pity mixed in with it. That night, I didn't take the chair by the window. I think that was the real birthday gift. The day I finally stopped expecting footsteps. They told me I was being placed with a family. Everyone said it like I'd won something. A caseworker smiled. She said I'd have my own space, routines, a fresh start. Adults love the phrase fresh start when they mean survive somewhere new. I wanted to be excited. I really did. Part of me still believed home might be hiding around the next corner. The first house sat on a quiet street with trimmed grass and a basketball hoop leaning sideways in the driveway. A married couple lived there with 3 boys who slammed doors, shouted across rooms, and never once wondered where I fit. My space was a fold-out couch in the den. No door, no closet, no place to close anything behind me. My clothes stayed in black trash bags for weeks, because nobody seemed in a hurry to unpack a child who might not last. That was my first lesson in foster care. People treat you according to how temporary they believe you are. They weren't monsters. That would have been easier. Monsters make clean stories. These people were polite enough in public, careless in private, and tired in the way that makes compassion feel optional. I was expected to help, stay quiet, and be grateful. Gratitude gets demanded most from people given the least. I learned their rhythms fast. Breakfast dishes before school, laundry after dinner. Keep the boys out of fights. Don't touch food marked with names. Don't ask for rides unless necessary. I became useful because useful children create fewer complaints. When relatives visited, I was told to make myself scarce, read somewhere else, watch TV in the den, stay out back for a while. No one said ashamed. They didn't need to. Some words can live perfectly well unspoken. After 8 months, they told the agency they felt overwhelmed and wanted to focus on their real family. Real family. That phrase sat in my chest for years, as if I had been a practice round. The second placement had too many kids and not enough adults. Shoes piled by the door like a yard sale, names written on cereal boxes, locks on one pantry cabinet. Noise all the time. You couldn't hear your own thoughts there, which maybe was the point. Food disappeared fast, so everyone learned speed. Privacy disappeared faster, so everyone learned suspicion. I slept in a room with 3 girls and one window that barely opened. We fought over chargers, blankets, bathroom turns, and things that were never really about those things. Pain likes disguises. At school, I got asked the same questions again. Where do you live now? Who picks you up? Why did you transfer? Kids can smell a soft target from across a hallway. I got good at shrugging. Good at jokes first, truth never. I made honor roll one semester and hid the paper in my backpack because I didn't know who it belonged to. Success feels strange when no one is waiting to celebrate it. By then, I apologized constantly. Sorry for bumping shoulders. Sorry for needing a form signed. Sorry for existing too loudly. Once you're abandoned early, you start assuming inconvenience is your native language. Then came the third house. This woman baked casseroles for church drives and called everyone honey in public. She knew how to smile with all her teeth. She also knew exactly where to place a knife without leaving marks. You'd be prettier if you smiled more. No wonder attachment is hard for you. Some girls just make life difficult. And once, while handing me folded towels, maybe if you were easier to love, someone would have kept you. She said it casually, like weather. That was the cruelest kind. Not rage, not screaming. Precision. I wanted to hate her. Instead, I hated that part of me still believed she might be right. That's what damage does. It borrows other people's voices and plays them back in your head. I started clenching my jaw in my sleep, woke with headaches, jumped when cabinets slammed, counted exits in every room without realizing I was doing it. From the outside, I looked fine. Grades okay, quiet, helpful. No major incidents. Adults often confuse silence with healing. One afternoon, I got sent to help at a church meal program because I was responsible, which usually meant free labor with a compliment attached. That kitchen changed my life before I knew it would. An older man stood at the baking station with flour on his sleeves and a pencil behind one ear. He barely glanced up when I walked in. "You know how to measure properly?" he asked. I said no. "Good," he said. "Means I don't have to unteach bad habits." That was Chef Daniel. He showed me how to level flour with a knife, wake yeast in warm water, wait for dough instead of forcing it. His voice was steady. No fake softness, no pity, just standards. The first tray of rolls I made came out uneven and pale. He looked at them, then looked at me. Again. No insult, no sigh, just again. Strangely, that felt like respect. Because he believed improvement was possible. Nobody had offered me that in a long time, so I kept volunteering for kitchen duty. I learned biscuits, pie crusts, braided loaves, cinnamon rolls. Butter temperature mattered. Timing mattered. Patience mattered. Care created results. That idea hit me harder than I can explain. People had been chaos. Recipes were honest. If you gave the right things time, they rose. I started holding on to that thought on bad nights. Maybe people weren't the only things that could fail me. Maybe systems could be cruel. Maybe homes could reject me. But flour, heat, discipline, repetition, those things kept their word. And for the first time in years, I wanted something beyond survival. I just didn't know how expensive hope was about to become. The next Saturday, Chef Daniel handed me a bowl and said, "Butter first, don't overthink it." Nobody had spoken to me like that before. Not gently because I was damaged, not sharply because I was unwanted. Just directly. Like I was a person expected to learn. That kind of respect can feel unfamiliar when you've lived on pity and correction. I creamed butter too fast. Sugar sprayed the counter. He slid me a towel without looking annoyed. Clean it. Start again. That was another surprise. Mistakes didn't become identity in his kitchen. They were just mistakes. So I kept coming back. Some weeks because I was assigned there, later because I wanted to be. He taught me ratios, timing, temperature, patience. He also taught me things no recipe card mentions. Don't slam trays when you're angry. Read the room before you read the oven. If you rush everything, nothing rises right. At first, I thought he was talking about dough. Later, I knew better. There was something healing about measured steps. Add this. Wait now. Fold gently. Try again. My life had mostly been people changing rules mid-sentence. The kitchen didn't do that. If I forgot salt, the bread told me. If I stayed consistent, the dough rewarded me. Truth is easier to trust when it comes warm. Around that same time, a guidance counselor at school started noticing me. Mrs. Carter wore bright scarves and sensible shoes, and she had a way of asking questions that made lying feel like extra work. She stopped me after class one afternoon. "Why are your grades higher on Mondays?" I said I didn't know. She smiled. "Because you work in that church kitchen on weekends. You're calmer after structure." No one had ever studied me kindly before. Most adults noticed problems. She noticed patterns. I didn't know how to handle that, so I got defensive. I said I was fine. I said everyone was making too much of nothing. She nodded like she'd heard that song before. Then she said, "Fine is often just a smart kid's hiding place." That sentence stayed with me. Mrs. Carter helped me apply for a culinary elective program. Chef Daniel helped me practice knife skills after service. One gave me opportunity. The other gave me standards. Together they gave me something rarer. Evidence. Evidence that I was teachable. Useful in the right way. Worth investing in. Part of me still waited for the catch. People had trained me for that. I expected disappointment to show up smiling. It never did. Chef Daniel corrected me because he cared about the craft. Mrs. Carter pushed me because she saw a future I couldn't yet picture. That difference changed everything. When someone believes in you without trying to own you, it rearranges your nervous system. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving placements and paperwork. I was building skills. And skills, unlike promises, could actually travel with me. I aged out at 19 with one duffel bag, a stack of paperwork, and the kind of fear that wears practical shoes. No balloons, no ceremony. Just signatures, deadlines, and people wishing me luck like luck was housing. I took a bus to San Diego because distance felt useful. Sometimes survival starts as geography. My first apartment was a cramped two-bedroom with peeling paint and roommates who asked only two things: pay rent on time and don't leave dishes in the sink. That sounded more loving than some homes I'd known. I enrolled in community college during the day, worked mornings at a diner, cleaned mixers and sheet pans at a bakery at night. In between, I learned the city by bus routes, shortcuts, and which laundromat dryers actually worked. I was exhausted almost all the time. But tired is different when it belongs to progress. At the diner, men in work boots wanted coffee before words. Nurses came in after night shifts with mascara smudged into honesty. Construction crews tipped in singles and advice. I watched adults who were struggling but still moving. That mattered. My childhood taught me collapse. Adulthood was teaching me maintenance. At night, I scrubbed flour paste off counters in a North Park bakery and studied food cost sheets taped near the office door. While other people scrolled phones on breaks, I memorized margins. Trauma made me alert. I finally found somewhere useful to aim it. Still, I had habits that didn't match the new life. I hoarded canned food under my bed. I apologized when someone bumped into me. I panicked any time the mailbox held official envelopes. Part of me had moved out. Part of me was still waiting to be removed. Then weekends changed everything. I started selling pastries at a farmer's market under a borrowed tent. brown butter muffins, honey sea salt rolls, cardamom buns. Chef Daniel helped me refine over the phone. The first day, I sold out in 2 hours. I thought it was luck. The second weekend, people came back with friends. That's when hope gets dangerous again. Because now, you have something to lose. A woman named Rachel ran the ceramic booth nearby. Fast talker. Sharp eyes. Zero patience for underpricing. She looked at my sign and said, "You're charging like you need permission." Then she helped me raise prices before noon. Some people enter your life as rescue. Others arrive as correction. Rachel became both. She taught me spreadsheets, vendor calls, and that being talented while broke is still broke. She also taught me to laugh without checking the room first. That was newer than I like to admit. I kept adding hours, classes, recipes, savings envelopes. My calendar looked impossible. My body often agreed. But momentum can be kinder than memory. When I was busy building, the past got quieter. Not gone, just quieter. I stopped searching my parents' names online, stopped imagining accidental reunions in grocery aisles, stopped rehearsing speeches for people who had not earned an audience. There wasn't time. I was too busy becoming expensive to underestimate. By 26, I had enough saved to think bigger than survival. Not safe enough to relax, just stable enough to risk. And that's usually the moment life asks what you really believe about yourself. I signed the lease on my first storefront with a pen that kept skipping ink. Tiny space, bad parking. One oven older than I was. I remember standing inside after the landlord left, listening to the empty room hum. No applause, no cinematic music, just rent due on the first. I named it New Dawn Bakery because some people get handed a clean beginning. The rest of us build one ourselves. Opening week was chaos. The espresso machine flooded once. A tray of buns burned because I was answering vendor calls. I cried in the walk-in cooler for exactly 4 minutes, then came back out because payroll doesn't care about emotions. That became a pattern. Feel it briefly, fix it quickly. Customers came anyway. They liked the bread. Then they liked the room. Warm wood, long tables, real coffee, no attitude. A place where nobody had to earn the right to stay seated. I built the shop I wished existed when I was young. Turns out other people were hungry for that too. One store became two. Two became three. Rachel ran operations like a general with better earrings. I hired people who needed a real chance more than a perfect resume. Former foster kids, single moms, men restarting after prison, women leaving bad marriages, people others had already misjudged. I knew the type because I used to be one. By the time we opened the 4th location, local magazines started calling me inspiring. I always found that funny. People love the victory lap. They rarely ask about the laps before it. They photographed me beside pastries and plants like resilience was a branding decision. I smiled because press helps business. But part of me still remembered sleeping beside packed trash bags. Success doesn't erase memory, it just changes the lighting. We launched apprenticeship programs, budgeting classes, emergency grants for young adults aging out with nowhere soft to land. I wanted the business to feed more than appetites. That mattered more than headlines. At 34, we had 7 locations across San Diego County, 7 stores, hundreds of employees over the years, lines out the door on weekends. And still, some mornings, I unlocked the first shop myself. Not because I had to. Because I never wanted success to become another room I didn't recognize. People assume winning feels loud. Sometimes it feels quiet. A key in a lock. Lights warming up. Bread rising in the dark before sunrise. I had peace, structure, work I respected. People who chose me daily. I had built a life sturdy enough that the past no longer controlled every room. Then one interview cracked that door back open. It was supposed to be simple. Local morning segment. Small business growth, community hiring, The usual questions people ask once your struggle becomes marketable. They powdered my face, adjusted a mic, and called me resilient before they knew anything real. I smiled. I knew the routine. Talk numbers, mention values, thank the team, promote the brand. Then the anchor looked down at her notes and asked one question nobody had prepared me for. Why do foster youth matter so much to you personally? There are moments when your body answers before your strategy does. My throat tightened. My hands went cold. Part of me wanted to pivot cleanly and give the polished version. The other part was tired of protecting people who never protected me, so I told the truth. Not every detail, not the ugliest nights, not the names. Just enough. I said I was left in care at 9. I said I moved through foster homes. I said everything I built came from knowing what happens when children are treated like leftovers. The studio got very quiet. That silence felt different than the old kind. This one had witnesses. The clip aired that afternoon. By evening, someone reposted it. By morning, a larger page picked it up with headlines about abandonment, survival, and the bakery owner who rebuilt her life from nothing. People love pain once it's packaged with success. Still, I read one word over and over: abandoned. I had spent years hearing softer versions: temporary, complicated, hard times, miscommunication. But there it was, in plain print: abandoned. Truth can sting even when it sets you free. I closed my phone and went back to work. Inventory still needed checking. Dough still needed shaping. Customers still wanted coffee. That's the strange thing about life-changing moments. They happen on ordinary Tuesdays. By lunchtime, my phone started ringing from numbers I didn't know. I ignored the first 3 because that's what adults with businesses do. Spam calls, vendor mistakes, somebody wanting free donations. Then the 4th call left a voicemail. I played it standing beside a rack of cooling croissants. See, it's Jason. I hadn't heard my brother's voice in 25 years, and somehow my body knew before my mind did. My shoulders locked. My stomach dropped. Trauma remembers faster than memory. He sounded older, softer. Careful in that way people get when they need something. He said there was a lot I didn't know. He said they'd been trying to find me. He said, please call back, please. Funny word from people who once specialized in silence. The next voicemail was Megan crying before she finished my name, then my mother. Breathy, fragile, suddenly emotional, then my father, then Jason again. By 5 o'clock, I had 11 missed calls. By dinner, texts started coming in. We need to talk. Your father is sick. Mom has been beside herself. There's so much you were never told. We're family. That last one almost made me laugh. People reach for blood when history fails them. Part of me wanted to throw the phone in a drawer and keep shaping dough. Another part, the younger part, still reacted to every message like it might contain the apology that never came. That's the humiliating truth about old wounds. Even healed skin remembers where it tore. So I did what I always do when emotion gets loud. I gathered facts. Rachel helped first. She can find patterns in chaos faster than most detectives. Public records, social media trails, business filings, county notices. Nothing illegal. Just the internet telling the truth people forget to hide. The picture came together fast. My father was living alone outside Phoenix and dealing with serious health issues. My mother's second marriage had collapsed under debt she'd apparently hidden for years. Jason had lost a regional sales job after an expense fraud investigation. Megan had drifted between households and pulled away once she learned pieces of what happened to me. In other words, life had finally become expensive. And suddenly, there I was. The daughter they couldn't carry at 9 now looked useful. At 34. That realization should have made me furious. It mostly made me tired. Because timing tells on people. If they loved me, they had 25 birthdays, 25 Christmases, 20 random Tuesdays to prove it. Instead, they called after headlines, photos, and public success. Need has a very recognizable ringtone. I listened to every voicemail twice, not for comfort, for motive. Then I set the phone face down and stared at the bakery lights after closing. Somewhere inside me, the little girl at the window was shaking. The woman she became was not. The next morning, my phone lit up again while I frosted cakes in the back kitchen. Jason, then Mom, then unknown caller, then Dad. I watched the screen buzz across stainless steel and kept spreading icing in smooth circles. 5 minutes, 10, 30. There was something almost poetic about it. Once, I had waited by a window for people who never came. Now they were waiting on the other side of silence. Part of me wondered if this was petty. Another part knew it wasn't revenge at all. It was distance. Distance from panic. Distance from guilt. Distance from being pulled into a story they only remembered when it needed saving. Every missed call felt less like punishment and more like truth, finally reaching the correct address. I didn't block them. I wanted them to hear the ringing, to feel time stretch, to wonder if I'd answer. Because uncertainty is heavier when you've earned it. By the third day, I was ready to choose the meeting place. I texted one sentence. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Flagship store. Come together. Not Arizona. Not some borrowed living room. Not a hospital room built to pressure sympathy. If the past wanted an audience, it could come to my address. They arrived 10 minutes early. I watched them through the front windows while wiping down the espresso bar. 4 people standing under the glow of my sign, shifting their weight like strangers waiting for a table. For one strange second, they looked normal. Then memory corrected the picture. My father seemed smaller than I remembered. Not just thinner, reduced somehow. My mother kept twisting her purse strap the way anxious people pray with their hands. Jason wore the careful face of a man asking for mercy before speaking. Megan looked at the door like she wasn't sure she deserved to enter. That feeling was mutual. I unlocked the door and stepped aside. No hugs. No dramatic tears. Good. Some reunions are healthier without performance. They followed me to the long communal table where customers usually shared coffee and cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings. Tonight, it held only water glasses and silence. I noticed them looking around. The tile, the shelves, the framed press articles. The open kitchen they could see from every seat. They were measuring what I had built. People always do that when they miss the construction years. Part of me wanted to ask if they liked the place. Part of me wanted to remind them they once thought I was too inconvenient to keep. Instead, I stayed calm. Power doesn't need volume when the room already knows who owns it. My mother whispered, "It's beautiful here." I pulled out a chair, sat down, and said the only sentence that mattered. "You didn't come to review the decor. Start talking." Jason went first because guilt often volunteers early. He cleared his throat twice, looked at the table, then somewhere near my shoulder. He said there were things I never understood. That everyone had struggled. That the divorce had been chaos. That adults make bad decisions when they're drowning. My mother nodded through tears like pain itself should count as evidence. My father said he was ashamed, said he'd been broke, drinking too much, not thinking clearly. He used phrases people use when they want responsibility to sound foggy. Hard season, bad place mentally, complicated time. Interesting how harm always becomes abstract when the guilty describe it. Megan cried quietly. She said she'd been told I was with relatives at first. Then told paperwork got messy. Then told contact was difficult. So many versions she stopped knowing which lie to believe. That part, I believed. Children inherit stories before they inherit truth. I let them talk for nearly 20 minutes. No interruptions, no sarcasm, no rescue from their own words. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people fully reveal themselves. Then I stood, walked behind the counter, and returned with 4 slim folders. I placed one in front of each of them. Names on the tabs, dates inside, Maple Haven intake forms, placement transfers, school records, case notes, birthday logs with no visitors listed, letters returned unopened. The room changed before anyone opened a page. Paper has a weight, memory doesn't. My father touched the folder like it might burn him. My mother already knew what was inside and still looked shocked. Jason opened his immediately. Megan stared at hers like she was about to meet a stranger. I sat back down. "You all keep using words like overwhelmed," I said. "So let me simplify it. You did not lose me, you left me." No one moved. Truth often enters quietly because it doesn't need help. I told them about the chair by the front window, the one with the cracked seat where I waited for headlights that never turned in. I told them how I kept my shoes on the first week in case they came late. How I stopped asking for updates out loud by day 3, because pity was louder than silence. My mother started crying harder. I kept going. I told them about the first foster house where my clothes stayed in trash bags because nobody unpacks temporary children. The second house where food disappeared fast and privacy faster. The woman who smiled in church and whispered poison in hallways. Maybe if you were easier to love. I watched my father close his eyes at that one. Good. Let him picture where absence sends people. I told them about apologizing for everything well into adulthood. For bumping shoulders, asking questions, taking space. How abandonment trains you to feel expensive. I told them about waking with headaches from clenching my jaw. About counting exits in rooms. About reading faces before words. Children adapt beautifully. That doesn't mean they aren't bleeding. Jason covered his mouth. Megan was openly sobbing now. My mother reached toward my hand and stopped halfway when I didn't move. That small pause said more than any apology. Then I told them about Chef Daniel, about Mrs. Carter, about the people with no blood claim who did what family refused to do. They taught me standards, skills, calm, self-respect. They invested without ownership. That was their indictment. Strangers raised what parents abandoned. My father finally spoke. He said, "I know I don't deserve forgiveness." I said, "Good. We agree already." Then he said he was sick, that he didn't know how much time he had, that he wanted to make things right. People love urgency once consequences become medical. I wasn't cruel, I was clear. I told him illness explains timing, not history. My mother said she thought I'd be safer in temporary care than in the chaos at home. I asked how safe it felt to wait by a window for months. She had no answer. Because some questions arrive already finished. Jason admitted he hoped maybe we could help each other now, that maybe family could rebuild. Maybe there was a way to support Dad's care. Maybe he could get back on his feet too. There it was. Need finally took off its coat. I wasn't angry then, just certain. All evening, some small part of me had still wondered if love might have shown up late. Now I knew it had carpooled with desperation. I looked at the 4 of them, then at the bakery around us. The lights, the ovens, the room I built from everything they broke. And I realized the hardest part of the night was over. Now all that remained was boundaries. Jason leaned forward first. Desperate people usually do. He said nobody expected miracles. They just needed help getting through a hard season, temporary support, medical costs, a little breathing room. Temporary. That word nearly made me smile. Funny how language circles back to the crime scene. My father kept his eyes down and said treatment had drained what savings he had left. My mother added that insurance only covered so much. She spoke fast, like speed might disguise the ask. Megan said she wasn't there for money. I believed at least part of that. She looked ashamed in a way the others still looked strategic. Then Jason said the quiet part out loud. "With everything you've built, maybe there's a way." There it was. Not reconciliation, not remorse. Capacity. I had become a line item with feelings attached. Part of me felt anger rise hot and fast. The younger part wanted to ask if I was finally valuable enough now. The older part knew not to waste clean truth on messy people. So I stayed calm. Calm can feel brutal when someone expects guilt. I asked one question. If I owned nothing, would you be here? No one answered. My mother cried harder. My father rubbed his hands together. Jason stared at the folders. Megan looked at me, then away. Silence is often the most accurate witness in the room. I thought about every year they had my number nowhere, every holiday without effort, every random Tuesday they could have searched before success made me searchable. Need is not the same thing as love. It only wears similar clothes. I told them I understood fear, illness, debt, regret. I understand more than they deserved, honestly. But understanding does not create obligation. That sentence landed hard. People who use others often mistake empathy for access. My father whispered that he was trying to make things right before it was too late. I told him too late is usually recognized only after the bill arrives. No one argued, because somewhere beneath the excuses, they knew exactly why they were there. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I would say next. I folded my hands on the table and looked at each of them slowly. No anger left. Anger had already done its job years ago. What remained was clarity. I'm not giving you money. No one spoke. I'm not funding treatment. I'm not covering debt. I'm not becoming the emergency exit for choices I didn't make. My mother gasped softly like firmness was cruelty. That happens a lot when people benefit from your softness. Jason started talking fast. He said I was misunderstanding. They weren't asking for rescue, just support. Just family helping family. I stopped him there. Family helped family when I was 8. Family helped family when birthdays passed unanswered. Family helped family before headlines and payroll numbers. What you're describing now is access to resources. That landed harder than shouting ever could. My father finally looked at me. Really looked. His eyes were wet, tired, older than I remembered. He asked if I could live with turning my back on him while he was sick. Part of me hated that question because it was designed for the child version of me. The girl who still believed love meant proving herself through pain. But I wasn't her anymore. I told him I had spent enough years carrying consequences that belonged to adults. I would not do it in my 30s, too. My mother said people make mistakes. I said leaving a child somewhere and building a life around her absence is not a mistake. It is a decision repeated daily. No one argued with that either. Truth gets heavy when it has nowhere left to go. I told them what I was willing to offer. I hoped they got honest with themselves. I hoped they stopped calling abandonment by softer names. I hoped they treated the people still in their lives better than they treated me. I hoped they found help that didn't require reopening old damage. But I would not be part of the repair plan. Some bridges burn. Others are simply never rebuilt. Megan cried quietly. Jason stared at the table. My mother kept saying sorry in different tones, as if rearranging the sound might change the history. My father asked if this was really final. I told him final happened a long time ago. Tonight was just acknowledgement. Then I stood up and gathered the folders. A small movement, but everyone understood what it meant. Meeting over. Boundaries don't always sound dramatic. Sometimes they sound like chairs sliding back. Sometimes they sound like a lock turning after the door closes. They rose slowly and walked toward the exit I had opened for them. And none of them realized I still had one softer decision left to make. As they reached the door, Megan turned back first. She always had the most honest face in the room. Tear-streaked, embarrassed, unsure whether to speak. I asked the others to step outside for a minute. That alone told me plenty. No one argued. When the door closed, the room changed. Less performance. More air. Megan said she was sorry for believing what she was told. Sorry for not looking sooner. Sorry for needing years to ask harder questions. I believed her because she wasn't trying to win anything. There's a difference between guilt and grief. She carried grief. Part of me wanted to punish her too. It would have been simpler. Clean lines. One verdict for everyone. But truth is rarely that neat. She was younger. She had inherited lies before she could challenge them. And unlike the others, she had shown up ashamed, not entitled. So I told her this. I'm not ready for sisterhood on demand. I'm not doing holidays, group photos, or instant healing, but if she wanted honesty, slow conversations, and time measured in actions instead of tears, maybe. Maybe is a generous word when trust has history. She nodded like I'd handed her more than she expected. Maybe I had. When she left, I realized mercy feels different than surrender, and outside the glass, the others were still waiting to learn that lesson. I watched them cross the parking lot under the bakery sign I paid for. My father moved slower than before. My mother kept talking with her hands. Jason stared at the ground. Megan looked back once, then kept walking. No one slammed doors. No one yelled. Some endings are too tired for drama. I locked up after they left and stood alone in the quiet shop. Ovens cooling. Chairs upside down on tables. The smell of cinnamon still hanging in the air. For years, I thought revenge would feel sharp. A speech. A scene. Tears on the right faces. Something cinematic. It didn't. It felt like understanding. That surprised me most. The real revenge was never making them hurt the way I hurt. Pain just multiplies itself and asks to be called justice. The real revenge was this. They saw who I became without them. They saw the business, the peace, the discipline, the people who loved me by choice, the room full of warmth I built from years they gave me none, and they knew none of it belonged to them. That is a different kind of consequence. Not punishment, exclusion. People can survive being hated. What breaks them is realizing they missed something beautiful they can't claim. Part of me wished they had come sooner. Not to save me, just to know me before success translated my value into a language they finally respected. But life doesn't refund timing. It only charges interest. I thought about the little girl by the window waiting for headlights. I used to believe winning meant someone returning ashamed. Now I knew better. Winning was becoming someone who no longer needed their return. I turned off the last light and looked back once at the room. New Dawn Bakery, a name I chose years earlier because some of us don't get one clean beginning. We build another. And that night, I realized I had already won long before they called. These days, part of every quarterly profit goes into housing grants, job training, and emergency funds for kids aging out of care. I do that because no child should have to become exceptional just to survive ordinary neglect. Pain should not be a scholarship program. People ask if I forgave my family. Some things, yes. Not because they earned it, because I got tired of carrying them inside me. But forgiveness is not access. That sentence took me years to learn. You can understand someone and still lock the door. You can wish them healing and still refuse the bill. You can feel compassion without volunteering your peace. Those are adult truths nobody taught me young. Children remember more than adults think. We remember who stayed calm, who stayed kind, who stayed at all. We remember excuses too. Memory keeps better records than families do. I still think about the girl at the window sometimes. The one with shoes pointed at the door, ready to run into someone's arms the second headlights appeared. I don't silence her anymore. I don't tell her to move on faster so other people feel comfortable. I take care of her now. That's what healing became for me. Not forgetting. Protecting. If there's anything worth carrying from my story, it's this. Blood may introduce people. Love is what proves them. And the people who stay when staying costs something, those are your real family. Some of life's deepest wounds come from the people who were supposed to protect you. But your past only keeps power if you keep handing it the microphone. Real healing usually isn't loud. It's not revenge. It's not arguing. It's not making others hurt the way you hurt. It's building a life they can no longer control. Boundaries are not cruelty. They're self-respect with a lock on the door. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it just means you stop carrying the weight. And some victories don't look dramatic. They look like peace, steady income, a calm home, a nervous system that can finally rest. Becoming whole without the people who doubted you, that's a different kind of winning. Blood may introduce people, but loyalty, love, and consistency, that's what makes someone family.